Welcome to a fresh episode of the Scott Howard Genuine ScLoHo Media and Marketing Podcast. My name is Scott Howard, also known as ScLoHo. What's a ScLoHo? Well, it's a nickname that uses the first two letters of my first name, middle name, and last name, ScLo and HO, and mashes them together. ScLoHo began as an email address and then my online persona, and since 2017, it's been a podcast. This is an ongoing collection of media, marketing, and personal insights. Each episode is usually less than 10 minutes long, and this one happens to be episode number 400. My goodness, I've been doing this for quite a while, haven't I? This one is titled, Is Radio a Good Place to Advertise? Let's talk about this for a second. Radio broadcasting is now over 100 years old. My primary radio station, WOWO Radio, is celebrating a century of service this year. So the question I've been asked for the past several decades is, does anyone still listen to the radio anymore? The short answer, yes. The reason is because radio stations have evolved over the past 10 decades. Most radio stations, like WOWO Radio, are more than just a specific place on a traditional radio dial. They are a brand, and listeners are not even sure how they listen to WOWO and other stations. They just do. Let me explain. Nearly every viable radio station has at least two basic ways listeners can hear the station: traditional AM or FM radio, and a digital stream of the station programming. About 85% of the listeners don't know if you ask them without digging in with a few deeper questions to pinpoint how they actually listen. With WOWO, you can listen on the following traditional radio frequencies. There's 1190 AM with the call letters WOWO. There's also 92.3 FM, which are licensed to the call letters WFWI. There's 107.5 FM, which is a low-power signal with the call letters W298BJ-FM, and 97.3 FM HD2, which is an HD subchannel with the call letters WMEE HD2. Now, we only promote the first two, 92.3 and 1190 AM as WOWO. The other two are a 100% simulcast of what listeners will hear if they listen to WOWO on 1190 AM. Now, there are some occasional differences in the programming on 1190 and 92.3 during live sports coverage of Indiana University, which is on 92.3 during college football and basketball games. But you see, the reason behind all this stuff is because this is all considered WOWO, WOWO. Then there's also the digital streaming of WOWO. There are tons of ways to listen this way. The original way was for people to go to the radio station's websites and play directly from them with the Listen Now type of button that you'd find on the website. Then smart speakers and apps created more ways to listen to a radio station's digital stream. iHeart, TuneIn, and others, for example. With the modernization of vehicle dashboards that I've experienced while renting cars in the last couple of years, I'm sure that some drivers have no idea how they're listening to WOWO. They just are, using the traditional or digital methods that I've been mentioning here. Now, I've also watched the local radio station ratings for the past couple of decades and observed that overall listenership has been steady, with some stations' listenership growing either in number of listeners or in time spent listening, or both. Those that don't grow, they go away and change formats. WOWO is a brand, and there are thousands of listeners every week that are spending money. All you have to do is invite them to be your customers, like we've been doing for 100 years. Earlier this month, a couple of reports came to my inbox from the Cumulus Westwood One Audio Active Group that use data from their nationwide resources that show some important reasons that radio is a good place to advertise. I've got links to those reports on my website. You can check them out yourself if you want to dig into them. But a few highlights from the perception study. 87% of Americans ages 18 and older listen to the radio weekly. Now, the perception is only 40% listen. That's quite a big difference. Spotify and Pandora replaced radio station listening is another myth. Nearly 70% of ad-supported audio is radio. Pandora and Spotify, they only have 5%. Podcasts, they only add up to 20% of listening. That's less than a third of radio listenership. Here's one more from the perception study. In the car, radio rules with 85% listenership. Podcasts have just 7%, and all the others share the rest. That other study, it's a media planning study, and here's a couple of highlights from it. It says buying ads on digital audio does not include radio only reaches about 30% of your potential customers. That includes both podcasts and streaming music platforms. When you add in radio ads, your business can reach 75% of your potential customers. There's a lot more information in those studies that you can read for yourself, but the bottom line is, yes, you should advertise on the radio, and I can help. Do you have any questions about advertising and marketing that you don't need to ask? You can ask me. Email me, scott@wowo.com. By the way, even though I'm recording this at the Federated Media Studios in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I work for WOWO Radio, and this is being promoted by my employer, everything that I say or write is strictly my own thoughts and not necessarily the opinions of Federated Media or any of their affiliations and or advertisers. Remember, feel free to drop me a note, scott@wowo.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.